You know, sometimes you have to be in awe of progressives, of left-wingers, of these anti-white types, because no matter what the question is, some of them will consistently just double down on blaming white people, calling white people are racist, and remarking about the evil white racism that is absolutely everywhere. And that is what Brandon Johnson recently did in a press conference where he was talking about how he's nailing the migrant crisis. He's absolutely killing it. Pay no attention to his incredibly low approval ratings just 6 months into his term, because the only problem that he is facing, the only problem that the city of Chicago is facing, is that white people do in fact exist, and white people are angry that black men are free, and they're holding a 400-year-old grudge about slavery because, gosh, aren't white people racist? Evil white racism, evil white racism. And this is actually something that this guy put forward in a press conference related to migrants when he was asked about Texas busing migrants to the city of Chicago. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to say thank you to everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform. So for those of you who need a quick recap, here it goes. The Democrats are more in favor of open borders policy. The Republicans elected in their last presidential election win, Donald J. Trump, who ran primarily on building a wall and being harsher on immigration. This caused a bunch of insane virtue signaling by members of the Democratic Party. You guys will remember Ocasio-Cortez taking these dramatic photos, only for it to be revealed later that she was quite literally looking at a parking lot, making all these exaggerated faces. But among the chaos and the ridiculousness, a bunch of Democratic cities either signed executive orders or passed laws saying that they're extra welcoming to illegal immigrants. They want the migrants here. They're in favor of the migrants. And the reason they did this is because it was an empty virtue signal, and they weren't actually ever expecting to live up to these promises because they don't live near the border. Fast forward to 2021. President Joe Biden is sworn in. He ran on being incredibly soft on immigration. All the asylum fraud that the Trump administration was working to prevent, they end up rushing to the border, surging the border, and instead of paying the cost of all these migrants like the border states typically do, they decided that they were going to, as a stunt, but an effective stunt, ship some of these people to the cities that asked for them, that said that they wanted them, that virtue signaled against the evil orange man and declared not accepting asylum fraudsters to be a product of evil white racism. One of those cities was Chicago, so during the Lightfoot administration, these people began to get bussed in. Brandon Johnson ends up beating Lori Lightfoot, he ends up becoming the mayor, and now he is dealing with the consequences of the policies that his party, and him in particular, advocate for.
I don't want them there. Take them someplace else or send them back to Venezuela. I don't care where they go.
Now, as we've covered multiple times on this channel, people in Chicago are not happy with these migrants there. Specifically, black Chicagoans seem to be the most enraged by the migrants being there. And since Brandon Johnson's base, his core of support, are black Chicagoans, specifically the ones in the highest crime areas who voted for him, even though he has a history of defunding the police, that anger, that ire was directed towards him, and hence his approval ratings are dropping. Now, he's talking about how he's dealing with the migrant crisis and whatnot, and we actually discussed on this channel how they actually had them camping outside, then the snow came, then the word got around to these migrants, who are largely but not limited to being from Venezuela, a warm weather climate, that this was not going to be a great place for them, so the migrants have been reducing naturally in the city of Chicago, because despite what you're hearing about Abbott's stunts and whatnot, the reason why the migrants are choosing to go to Chicago, they're choosing to go to New York, is due to the fact that they're offered more benefits from these people who try to virtue signal about the issue, and they want to take advantage of those benefits. When they found out that they were going to have to camp out on the sidewalk and and that it was going to snow and it was going to be colder than they've ever faced, they all of a sudden decided that they wanted to go other cities. We actually did a whole video on that, link in the description and in the iCard right there for the YouTube viewers. Now, while Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, has been talking about how this is a complete and utter crisis, an absolute disaster for New York City, Brandon Johnson has been trying to save face this whole time, and in order to do that, he has to misdirect, lay blame on someone else, and of course he decided to lay blame on Republicans, white people, and evil white racism, and the desire to punish black people for being free, because white people can't get over the fact that slavery has ended, because I don't know if you guys know this, white people hate black people, and they just want to redo slavery, because aren't white people racist? Evil white racism, evil white racism, evil white racism.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi. Thank you.
What would you want to see from the border deal that's being discussed in Congress? And would you want some limits placed on the flow of migrants from other cities and states?
Well, it has to be better coordination. You know, what we've seen is a very raggedy form instituted by right-wing extremism. Everyone knows that the right-wing extremism in this country has targeted democratically ran cities. And quite frankly, they've been very intentional about going after democratically ran cities that are led by people of color. And their whole motivation is to create disruption and chaos, because that's what that particular party has been about.
So Brandon Johnson right there was asked about the border deal that is currently being negotiated in the halls of Congress right now. A border deal where the Democratic Party might actually have to give something in order to get something that they want, which is something that we have not seen on immigration policy in a very long time. But Brandon Johnson doesn't address the heart of the issue. Instead, he likes to target right-wing extremists, aka evil white racists, and say that these evil white racists are targeting democratic cities to cause chaos within democratic cities, as if you're not doing a bang-up job on your own. Over 800 murders, Brandon Johnson. Don't think I didn't notice how Chicago has been falling due to your defund the police ideology, but he says it's all about their evil white racism, and they're specifically not only targeting democratic cities, they're targeting democratic cities with mayors of color. Now, I will ask anybody out there in the audience, since Lori Lightfoot and Bill de Blasio were the ones who signed these extra sanctuary city orders and decided that they weren't going to work with ICE in basically any capacity, do you think that they would still be sending migrants to the city of New York if Mayor Bill de Blasio was still the mayor at that time? It just so happens that he was out of office when that order that prevented the asylum seekers from flooding the border was still in place, and had he remained in office post that time, of course Greg Abbott would be sending migrants to the city of New York, because what this is actually about is the cities that said that they were welcoming to migrants and never actually have to live up to their values. So right off the bat, first and foremost, Brandon Johnson is playing the race card because he's a one-trick pony. I gotta give him credit because he always dances with the chick that he invited to the dance and no one else, and it's completely nonsensical in every possible way.
Right, this is the same political party that did not want to accept that President Obama was actually an American. It's the same Republican right-wing extremism that stormed the Capitol.
So then Brandon Johnson goes full NPC mode. He says, oh, these people wouldn't accept that Barack Obama was a citizen. The birther thing for Barack Obama is a small contingent in the American population. And by the way, I want to point out that one of the chief people behind the birther conspiracy was actually associated with the Hillary Clinton campaign. He was doing this to damage Obama so that she could win the nomination. But Brandon Johnson is not interested in talking about the origin point of that conspiracy because that's inconvenient for the point he wants to make. He also brings up January 6th. Where were you? January 6th, I was in a car dealership trying to buy a car when the guy told me that frame damage was no big deal and I should totally spend all my money full price on this vehicle. And then when I was arguing about frame damage, I looked up on the screen and what did I see? I saw our republic get frame damage. I saw democracy, not just in the United States, but worldwide, falling before my very eyes, getting frame damage in front of my face. Where were you January 6th? I was in a car dealership. Where were you?
It's the same right-wing extremism that refuses to accept the results of the Civil War.
And then he finishes it up by saying that Republicans aren't over the loss of the Civil War because, you know, evil white racism, slavery, slavery, slavery. I don't know if you guys know this, but Republicans, evil white racists, evil white racism, and let us not forget the evil white racism of the evil white racists. It's absolutely absurd to bring up slavery in this context, but again, you got to give Brandon Johnson some modicum of credit because a normal person wouldn't think to work a slavery reference in this conversation, but Brandon Johnson says, you know what? I got one card. It's the race card. Let me fling it on the table. It's already there because I constantly play it every single time. If he was playing rock, paper, scissors and racism was rock, you better pick paper because he's going to draw that rock each and every time.
Look, Pastor Will Hall, who's also an alderman of the 6th Ward, visited the border. He saw the chaos firsthand. And so part of our effort to go to the border was to make sure that there was better coordination with the flow of migrants who are seeking asylum here.
So then Brandon Johnson follows it up with a straight up lie after telling a truth. First and foremost, we all know there is chaos at the border. We've seen the videos and whatnot, but he says that he went to the border with the alderman in order to have better coordination for the migrants going to Chicago. But we know, because we covered this on the past in this channel, they actually went to the border to spread the word that Chicago is not going to be hospitable for these migrants to reduce their flow. And by the way, the flow is in fact reducing. We did a whole story where we featured an alderman, I think it might even be the same exact alderman, talking about how they're trying to get the word out that you're going to sleep on the pavement in the icy winter conditions of the city of Chicago. Let me play that clip for you.
6th Ward Alderman Will Hall, who traveled to the border a few weeks ago, says word is spreading on social media among migrants that Chicago may not be the best place to come. And border nonprofits say not as many people are asking to come to Chicago.
So people are beginning to get informed that it's cold, the opportunities are scarce, and that unless you want to sleep on a concrete mattress, don't come. And that's what those who have come seeking asylum have said.
So no, Brandon Johnson, you did not go there for better coordination. You went there to make sure migrants would stop coming to the city of Chicago because it's causing you grave political troubles and you don't want to be at under 30% approval rating 6 months into your term.
It is abysmal, and it's an affront for everything that is good about this country. For the extremism in this country to use people as political tools to settle political scores for something that happened 400 years ago. They're still mad that a black man is free in this country.
And then he comes close to wrapping it up with this right here, where he says, it's mean-spirited, it's bad, how dare you make us live up to our values? That's not what you're actually doing. What you're doing is, you're trying to settle a political score that's 400 years old because you evil white racist, with your evil white racism, can't stand the fact that a black man is free in this nation. You just can't do anything but keep a black person down. You're obsessed with slavery. Pay no attention to the fact that Brandon Johnson, no matter what the context is, can't help but bringing up slavery, can't help but bringing up how bad white people are, can't help but blaming white people for all of his problems. You're the one with the race problem, according to Brandon Johnson. That's why Brandon Johnson is always playing the race card. That's why Brandon Johnson is always talking about how he's such a victim of evil white racism, even when he is the mayor of Chicago, the third largest city in the United States of America. It turns out that that does not buck against his victim status. So you stupid town with 20,000 people that gets surged with 50,000 migrants, you need to pay for those welfare benefits for those migrants. Otherwise, you're an evil white racist, and your evil white racism is showing, and Brandon Johnson hates you because you're white. I'm sorry, I meant because you're racist, because he totally makes that distinction. And a right-wing extremist, wink, 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 nod, nod, he totally doesn't have a history of just being broadly anti-white.
This is nothing new, but aren't you glad that the soul of Chicago won't be broken? And those are the words of I think Beyonce, you won't break our soul.
So then, in the ultimate NPC maneuver from a member of the left wing, he already did the January 6th. Where were you, January 6th? We're not going to get into that. He already did the, oh my god, the migrants, you using the people as props. He already did the evil white racism, and he's so compassionate and amazing. And then he closes it with the Beyonce quote, which is just the lamest punchline to any joke. It's in every bit of woke media. I think that stupid Mean Girls trailer, which by the way, is apparently a musical, even though it doesn't show that in the trailer, but they just kind of recreate scenes from the original Mean Girls, closes with the Beyonce joke because, haha, Beyonce, isn't that a great punchline? I'm Brandon Johnson. Stop sending migrants here, you evil white racism. I want to keep all them Latins out, but you're the evil white racist, and pay no attention to the fact that I keep doubling down on Chicago being welcome to migrants while doing everything in my power to make sure that migrants aren't sent to the city of Chicago, including going to the border and telling them that they'll freeze to death if they come to the city of Chicago. So yeah, Brandon Johnson, I look forward to you being a one-term mayor. I look forward to your poll numbers dropping even further. I look forward to seeing the desperation on your face like I saw in this video, where you're calling everything evil white racism and you're trying to guilt people about slavery, because I'm hoping that you are a bellwether test that the time of this trick working is over, that this is not going to hold forever. People are going to realize the huckster, the race hustler that you actually are, and throw your ass out of office. So then maybe, just maybe, you can actually be in a bad position in your life instead of just pretending to be your whole life in order to gain political power. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show them by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on my social medias. Support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Brandon Johnson saying him getting migrants like he asked for is like reinstituting slavery. Till next time.